to snore so we definitely know what they're doing, and we're ready to learn.
Thank you. I'm loud. Thank you all for coming tonight. Can you guys hear me in the back? All right, I'm kind of loud. If you need me to be louder, let me know. Patty ruined my introduction. I normally start off by saying I'm the big goofy guy that talks too much, and Terry's the little guy that knows all the tricks and doesn't talk much. So in Vegas, we'd be Penn and Teller. With all these props, maybe Carrot Top, but I don't like that guy, so I'm not going there. Patty started the introduction. I'm Greg, this is Terry. We both volunteer with Southern Nevada Off-Road Recovery. We've done a lot of recoveries. We've had people with rollovers, leaving ambulances, helicopters. We've taken vehicles to the junkyard. We've seen about everything that there is. We've recovered a lot of stuff. People always ask, what recovery gear should I get? The short answer is you don't need to get anything. Go with somebody that's got stuff. There's an ongoing debate within SNOR about the amount of gear you need to carry. The truth is, all this gear came out of my Jeep, and you're gonna wonder how I got it all in there, but I'll tell you at the end. I like the analogy of the fire department and the fire station. They don't have fully equipped trucks identical. They've got an engine, a medic truck, a ladder truck, a supervisor in a Suburban, and they've got a whole bunch of different stuff. When you guys go out on a trail, you don't all have to have an exact copy of the same gear. You're gonna find somebody likes a shovel, somebody likes a traction board. I don't like either one because they're manual labor. I like winches and ropes because it's easy and the vehicle will do the work for me. But I call this class Know Your Gear. The truth is, I don't know your gear because I haven't been in your Jeep. I know my gear, and I'm gonna show you everything from one extreme to the other, and I'm gonna let you decide what you like. We've got people that come out with us that have gear and have never used it. I'll bet we have people in this room that put a winch on their Jeep or bought a Jeep with a winch and fortunately have never had to need it. The truth is, when we get down to ropes, we're gonna talk about your winch, how your rope gets coiled or bird nested and becomes a pain in the butt or unusable. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So the first thing that everybody's gonna have is some kind of a jack. All of our Jeeps came with a little flimsy factory jack that was barely tall enough to get our stock tire changed. First thing we do is go lift our Jeeps and put big tires on them. And if you've ever had a flat tire and you've gone to pull that little scissor jack out, you've realized it doesn't work. Now you're trying to find rocks or stuff to pile up to lift your Jeep up. So one of the best things you can do is get yourself a little bottle jack. I just got a short little jack from Harbor Freight. Wasn't a lot of money. I keep it in my jack. Terry's seen me blow a tire and have to use it. Mine just fits underneath the axle when the tire's flat, and it gets just tall enough to lift my axle up high enough to change the wheel. So I can do everything I need with this jack. I'm not using a small jack and then a bigger jack or trying to find something else. I brought a high lift jack. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't raised on a farm. I'm not fond of the farm jack, but there is an application, and if you need it, it does work. But it's heavy, it can be dangerous. Again, if you're carrying some of this gear, you need to know your gear, what its application is and what its limitations are. I've gone as far as to carry a giant marshmallow. This thing will slide underneath your Corvette laying on the ground with flat tires and get 3 feet tall. You've probably seen airbags used to roll semi-trucks and stuff over so they don't tear holes in the side of them. I've carried this thing for years. I'll be honest, I've never used it. But one of the first things you're gonna need is a jack to change your spare tire. Is there anybody in here that has not yet had a flat tire while you're out running around somewhere? Wow, your time's coming, you just jinxed yourself. If you do this long enough, you're gonna get a flat tire, you're gonna get stuck, you may almost roll over. I won't mention any names, but if anybody wants to volunteer themselves, they can. But we've put people back on trails. Yes?
Did you say that the jack that comes with it is no good, but that little thing is the thing that you should have instead?
The little scissor jack that comes with your Jeep works perfect on a stock Jeep. But as soon as you lift your Jeep or you put bigger tires on it, it doesn't always have the range to lift your vehicle high enough. But this bottle jack right here will actually unscrew and get taller and then extend hydraulically. So that's the jack that I use most of the time. Terry's actually got a cool little cradle that goes on the top of his. It's a little Y, a little yoke, that the axle will sit right in so it can't slip off. I just try to be careful. Next thing behind a jack is a shovel. These little military type shovels fold right up. They're real compact. They'll fit under your seat. They'll fit in a bin, in a backpack, in anything else. Minimum, you're gonna want to dig out somehow with a shovel. I'm lazy. I went full-size shovel, but this shovel unscrews, has a short stubby handle if I want to get under a vehicle, and fits in this bag. I said I was going to tell you at the end how I get all this stuff in my Jeep. You're going to find out real quick. I like bags. My high lift, it goes in a bag. My shovel goes in a bag. This is in a bag. Traction board's in a bag, in a bag, in a bag, in a bag, in a box. Because it all stacks up in stores real easily. The other thing is, if I go out and use these traction boards in the mud, in the snow, I don't have a Gladiator, so I can't throw all my stuff in the bed of my truck like some of you guys. All my gear is going back inside the Jeep. So believe it or not, I've taken these muddy traction boards and put them right back in the case, wet and muddy, to keep the inside of my Jeep clean. When I get home, I can hose the whole thing out and then put it back away clean. But everything I've got goes in bins, bags, somewhere neatly in the back of my Jeep. And believe it or not, all of this stuff did come out of my Jeep. So beyond jacks and shovels, we want some kind of traction board. Steve, I think, at the last class, got to play with his shovel and traction boards for the first time. I'll be honest, I thought traction boards were the last thing people were going to want to play with. However, some people that had traction boards have never used them, jumped right in. And if you take that tire stuck in the sand and you clear the sand out at about a 45-degree angle to the tire, again, I like a shovel, but some of these heavier duty traction boards can actually be used as a shovel in the sand, in the mud, in the snow. I don't know that this is going to shovel real good in the rock and the dry dirt, but once you get that thing wedged underneath the tire, which I hope all of you are coming out Sunday because everybody's going to get an opportunity to let Steve dig their Jeep out and pull them out. But when used correctly, it's pretty easy, isn't it, Steve?
Actually, I used my boards as the shovel.
You did.
And when the angle was right, and I had enough depth for the board and my tire to grab it, I didn't even have to throttle a lot. It just grabbed it, kept on going.
Rolled right out. Traction boards can be big, they can be expensive. There's a lot of different kind of traction boards. Some of you have probably seen ads for Go Treads. They fold up into about a 12 by 12 block, but they unfold and you've got a full length traction board that you can stick under there that'll fit right underneath your seat. So again, small items in a bag, you don't have to have big traction boards. These are Max Track, they're from Australia. They're one of the heaviest, strongest boards that are out there. Since we do this quite a bit, I have a full set of 4 in a bag. However, you can go find a set of aftermarket, no-name boards on OfferUp for 50 bucks. I found this pair for 50 bucks with a bag, because I like the dirt in the bag, not in my Jeep. But you don't have to go spend $300-400 on a lot of expensive stuff. You can find used stuff. I don't know if anybody knows what a land anchor is, but I've got a pull paw land anchor at the end there. They're $500-600 bucks new. When I first started doing this, I set my Jeep up for self-recovery because I wanted to go home at the end of the day. I had a winch, I had a bunch of rope. There's not a lot of trees in southern Nevada to tie to, so I got a big anchor. I paid 150 bucks for it, brand new in that case on OfferUp, from a guy in another Jeep club that had paid 500 or 600 bucks for it, carried it around for 2 years, never used it, stored it in his garage for 2 years and just wanted it out. So before you go spend a lot of money on stuff, look at Facebook Marketplace, look at OfferUp, see who else has got stuff that they're tired of carrying around. You can find good deals on a lot of stuff. Anybody have questions about jacks, shovels, traction boards before I start talking about ropes?
You have to carry 4 of them?
You don't have to carry 4.
Is it recommended for kids to carry?
Since Terry and I volunteer with Southern Nevada Off-Road Recovery, if you got stuck axle deep or frame deep in the mud or the snow up on Mount Charleston, it may take 4 to get you back up out of the mud. you're going to find out if you come out Sunday, most vehicles can be recovered with 2. You just got to give 2 tires traction. They come as a set of 2 in most cases, but I do have a set of 4 in this bag here.
I only have 2 in my Jeep. So,
What size jack do you recommend?
Jack? Well, this little one is an 8-ton jack, 16,000 pounds. The truth is we could stack Terry's Jeep on my Jeep and jack them both up. I was less concerned about the weight capacity, carrying capacity of the Jeep as I was the size.
yep.
When it's fully retracted, it needs to be able to fit underneath the edge of your axle when your tire's flat. So if your tire's flat and you've got 8 or 10 inches of room, you can get this jack in there. If I buy too big a jack, I can't get it under there when my tire's flat. The other thing is I want enough extension that I can lift that thing up off the ground to get the tire off without having to use a second jack or a bunch of boards or something. So again, you've got to have some idea what the distance is from the bottom of your axle to the ground when your tire's flat and how high you need to get up. We've got a guy who's not here tonight. Are you on 40s or 37s, 38s now, Shane? 37s. We got a guy on 40-inch tires. When that 40-inch tire goes flat, he's got to lift his truck way up in the air to get that tire changed. I'm not sure you get the reward of the money you spent for 40s, but he needs a different jack than I do. So part of the reason that I call this class Know Your Gear is your vehicle is different than mine. Your gear requirement's different than mine. Your budget's probably different than mine. Your desire to run a shovel is probably different than mine, Steve, because I don't want to run a shovel. I'm lazy, and I'm going to take the easiest way out. And with all this gear and ropes and other ways to get you out, you're going to be hard-pressed to find me pull out a shovel or a jack or even traction boards, because if I can put my Jeep on dry ground and pull out a winch or a rope and pull you back onto hard pack material, it's a lot easier.
It also has a lot to do with, what you plan on doing with your vehicle. If you just like doing fire roads, easy trails where you're always on a very well-maintained trail, the chances of you getting into some squirrely stuff is less likely. Greg and I, we follow Keith a lot, and we end up in places that you probably shouldn't be, but that's what we like to do. Because we do it Snore, we go where people have ventured where they shouldn't have and now got stuck, and we got to be able to get there and get out. So what we carry and what you might need to carry, it all comes down to what you're doing with your life, with your Jeep, and what your purposes are. So you probably don't need a fraction of this stuff, but you never know.
If we go back to the beginning, I said you don't need to go buy anything.
That's true.
I saw a sign the other day that said, when I bought a new Jeep, I didn't know it came with free friends. Well, that's the truth, and that's why we're here. And, I don't think there's ever been a post with Desert Wranglers Jeep Club that said, I'm going somewhere by myself. If I don't come home, call for help. You post that you're going and people go with you. Somebody's got more gear. If you want it, I'm telling you what's out there, and we'll go use it on Sunday. You can make some decisions on what you want to have with your gear, how you want to use it. But the truth is, you don't need any of it. Keith just goes with people with recovery gear.
That's exactly right.
Okay, shovels, jacks, traction boards. Any questions there?
What is this high lift jack used for?
Oh,
Well, it can be used.
a lot.
It can be used for anything. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Well, if you look at mine, my case is clean and my jack is not scratched. So the truth of the matter is, I don't care for it because it's heavy, it's awkward, and it can be dangerous. I'm not going to tell you how to use it right now, but you can go look at videos online. But this handle is the handle that jacks it up. So I can lift anything from about 6 inches all the way to about 4 feet off the ground. So not only is this a jack, but it can also be used as a tool to pry things apart. There's another foot that goes on this side. Fire departments use them to open doors, break into vehicles. You can turn this thing on its side on a farm and hook your fence to it, a chain to pull a tree out, or your barbed wire fence.
It could be a come along.
Jack it back together, it can be a come along. So it is a very versatile tool. You can find them for about $100. They're heavy. This one doesn't spend much time in my Jeep anymore because I don't want to use it. But it exists, and if you're the guy that's got to have all the options, that's a good option.
We did a snore training class about a month or so ago, and one of the things that they were going over was high lift. And one thing we did with it, the scenario was the vehicle is on the edge, it's got a flat, it's got a problem, you got a wall over here, you don't have a lot of room to work with. We need to move the Jeep over a foot. Well, how the hell do you move a Jeep over a foot to the side? We did it with that.
You can take that high lift jack and put it underneath the trailer hitch or the center of your rear bumper, lift the rear end of your vehicle up in the air, and then push your vehicle over. And just let it fall 6 or 8 inches over to the side. You can do that multiple times. Again, you know, I guess I should digress back to the very beginning for a second. I forgot my disclaimer. Desert Wranglers Jeep Club has invited people from the Red Cross to come in and talk about CPR and stuff, where they will actually administer a CPR class, let you perform, and then certify you as a CPR qualified person. I'm not here to certify anybody for anything. I'm not going to tell you every application for it. I can't prevent you from hurting yourself if you go out and do something silly and want to get hurt. We'll go out Sunday and we'll play with a lot of this stuff. I will make sure nobody gets hurt on Sunday while we're out there. But Desert Wranglers Jeep Club would like to make sure that everybody understands you're not a certified recovery expert at the end of this. The truth of the matter is, when we show up on a recovery as a member of SNOR, we have a disclaimer form, and I tell people right when we show up, this form says, I'm not responsible for the damage Keith already did to his Jeep. He's not responsible for any damage we do to mine when I'm here as a volunteer to help you out. And I've told, well, you're gonna use Keith as an example. I've told Keith, it's your Jeep, you're in charge. I haven't left anybody behind yet, but if you see something you don't like, tell me to stop and I'll go home and leave you in the hole. I don't care. So just know that just because you have seen some of this stuff, you've bought some of this stuff, you watched us use some of this stuff on Sunday, I'm going to tell you that doesn't make any of us a recovery expert, and it doesn't obligate you to help anybody.
Nope.
If you get out and you can use some of this stuff to get yourself out and let yourself go home to do what you want to do at the end of the day, that's why I put all this gear in my Jeep in the first place. Then I realized if Justin gets stuck, I can go help. It's Justin, right? I can go help him because I've already got this stuff in my car, but I'm comfortable with it, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. Let's not damage your vehicle or mine, and if we're both comfortable, we'll use it. If not, you're going to have to wait till somebody else shows up. Sorry, dude. So anyway, that was the disclaimer I was supposed to give at the beginning. You've got to decide what you're comfortable doing, and if you show up at a stuck vehicle and the guy's a jerk, he's intoxicated, he's something else, leave him there and walk away. You've got no obligation to help anybody. The only obligation you've got is to yourself, and you want to go home safe at the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward here. Shackles. This is one of the biggest confusion areas that comes up. This is a hard shackle or a bow shackle. Some of us have them hanging on weld points on the front of our Jeep, and we can hook ropes and straps and stuff to them. This hard shackle is designed, as far as I'm concerned, for only one application, and that is going through a sharp hole to protect your ropes. Anytime you can hook a rope to something, it's a lot safer. If this shackle breaks and goes flying, this thing weighs about 2 pounds, and it can travel at more than 100 miles an hour. So if you picture a baseball pitcher at 100 miles an hour throwing balls at batters that are diving out of the way, this thing's coming at you equally as quick, and if you're not paying attention, it can kill you. So hard shackle is not used to connect two ropes together. We don't want it out in the middle. We're going to use soft shackles for that. So again, we got a lot of people. I don't know if I'm going to pass it around, but at the end, I'll let you guys come up and take a look at it. But anywhere you've got a welded recovery point on your Jeep, you're going to put that hard shackle in there so that you have a place to attach to. I've got to talk about weight ratings before I move forward on all this stuff. Weight ratings are very confusing. Everybody rates things differently, and the number you're looking for is not always talked about. And here's the reason I'm going to say that. If anybody has put their hands on a hard shackle, they're usually rated somewhere between 4 and 5 tons. We could argue these are probably made in China and it might be a metric ton, but nonetheless, I'm gonna round numbers off going forward. The working load limit on this hard shackle is 10,000 pounds, okay? A lot of us have a 10,000 pound winch on our Jeep and we think 10,000 pound worth of force coming off our winch and a 10,000 pound working load limit hard shackle. That is safe. However, this hard shackle is the only piece of gear up here that is actually a piece of safety rated crane rigging for overhead lifting, which has a 5 times safety factor. So the braking strength of this hard shackle that isn't talked about is 5 times the working load limit, 50,000 pounds. You guys are gonna be hard pressed to do anything out there in the field to exert more than 50,000 pounds on any of this gear, which means the weak link is somewhere else on this table. This is not the weak link. When it's pulled on this way, like a piece of crane rigging, its braking strength is 50,000 pounds. Even if you're not paying attention and this thing gets turned sideways and you're trying to stretch it apart, you've cut its braking strength by about 50%. It's still not gonna break until you see 25,000 pounds. All these ropes and everything else we're gonna talk about have a minimum braking strength significantly less than 25 or 50,000 pounds. So this is not gonna break. Depending on what's attached to your vehicle, this thing may or may not be welded securely to your vehicle, and this may tear off. We've seen bolt-on recovery points that have got torn off of vehicles. We've seen bumpers that have got torn off of vehicles. So anytime you can attach to the frame or a trailer-mounted recovery point that's attached to a trailer hitch, attached to both frame rails, you're better off. If you're gonna use this hard shackle to protect a rope from the sharp edges of something on your vehicle, which is what this is designed for, protect the rope from the sharp edges, when this is attached to your vehicle, it is probably not going flying. However, if I take 2 ropes and I put that hard shackle between these ropes and a rope breaks, that missile's going flying and it's gonna hurt. So, if a hard shackle is attached to a vehicle and we've got to attach other things, how do we do it? Well, has anybody not seen a soft shackle? Soft shackle? Come get this one, I'm gonna let you play with it. So a soft shackle is designed to do the same thing. It's essentially a rope with a noose on it. This rope has a loop on the end that opens up, goes over the other end of the loop and becomes a noose. You can see this one has been pulled on in this direction because I've used it, and it's got flat spots where I've hooked it up and used it. This is the correct application of a soft shackle. You could put it on here this way and pull this way. You could put the pressure on a lot of different places. However, if you take this noose and you put it right over the top of that knot, I'm trying to pull through the rope. I'm trying to tear that rope in half. It's not gonna tear in half, it's not gonna come apart. However, if I take it this way, I have reduced the braking strength of this rope. I have had shackles, and I gave it to somebody else as an example, but I had a soft shackle somebody else hooked up for me, and they took this noose and they got it around the knot. Not below the knot, around the knot. And they performed a recovery like this, and it worked. And at the end, that knot had a little band squeezed right in the middle of it where that noose choked the knot, but it did not come off. If this is not all the way over the knot, and I go to pull it in this direction, something's coming off. If you're stuck in the sand and you're pulling somebody out of the sand and my rope comes apart, we just hook it back up. But if you're stuck 200 feet down a cliff like we had a few nights ago, and I pull you halfway up the cliff and then this comes apart, you're going back down. So again, the correct application, and we're gonna do this on Sunday, is over the top of the noose, try to pull the noose through the knot in that kind of direction. So that's the application. Now, we have different size pieces of rope. This little cute one right here is made out of a 1/4 inch rope. And it says right on it, Braking strength, 11,000 pounds. Okay? Here's where the rating myth comes in. I just told you this says working load limit of 10,000 pounds as a piece of crane rigging with a 5-to-1 safety factor. The braking strength on this piece of metal is 50,000 pounds. Whoever built this cute little soft shackle with the noose, they don't tell you what the working load limit is with a safety factor. It says right on it that the braking strength is 11,000 pounds. Well, if we want a 5 times safety factor, which we don't need, I'll get to that in a second, but if we wanted a 5 times safety factor, the working load limit on this thing might be 2,000 pounds. It's not even a side-by-side, but it's cute. So if we go up from there, we can take a 3/8" piece of rope, which is about what your winch line is. I'm gonna step aside for just a second and talk about your winch line. Is anybody still running a steel cable on their winch? Where's Jack? Do you still have a steel cable on your winch, Jack, or did you change it?
No, it's steel.
Okay, so Jack has a steel cable on his winch. Jack's steel cable is abrasion resistant. We can take Jack's steel cable and drag it on the rocks and we're probably not gonna damage his cable. However, the braking strength of the average 3/8" winch cable is 15,000 pounds. If we've got it on a 10 or 12,000 pound winch, let's just go with 10 because the math's easy. If I've got a 10,000 pound winch with a 15,000 pound cable, I've got a 1.5 times safety factor. I'm probably not gonna break Jack's steel cable. However, if we ever do break Jack's steel cable, it's going flying. A synthetic rope does not store energy like a steel cable does. There's pros and cons to both. Jack can drag his rope on the ground over a rock or do something else, and he may kink it, but he's probably not gonna cut it like we may with a rope. The rope, actually, a 3/8" synthetic rope on most of your winches has a braking strength of about 20,000 pounds. So with a 10,000 pound winch and a 20,000 pound braking strength, we've got a 2-to-1 safety factor. The rope's not gonna break. Your winch is gonna stall before you break your rope. The reason I jumped to the rope for a second is if we take that same 3/8" winch line with close to a 20,000 pound braking strength, and we make a soft shackle out of that 3/8" rope, there's 2 ropes. I know it's not quite double, but to keep the math simple, we're gonna say we've got a doubled up rope here, and the braking strength on a 3/8" shackle is close to 40,000 pounds. The truth is, it's only 39.6, but it's close enough. But 3/8" shackle is plenty. You can get 3/8" shackles that are just a rope. You can get some that come with a protective sheath that slides over it. I normally take them off because they're hard to slide through other points, but you can get soft shackles that have harder material, that are more abrasion resistant to protect them if you so choose. My preference is a 1/2" shackle. This whole box is full of 1/2" shackles. The 1/2" rope has closer to 25,000 pound braking strength. 2 of them is 50,000 or more. I'm gonna get to that in a minute because once we go to winches, ropes, and pulleys and we start doubling, tripling, quadrupling the pulling effort, you're certainly not gonna want this even on a single line pull. You may meet the braking strength of a 3/8" soft shackle when you start putting pulleys on it. By the time you get to a 1/2" shackle, you're 40,000 pounds plus. I've got some 5/8" shackles here that have a braking strength of closer to 66,000 pounds. So at a 2-to-1 safety rating, this thing's not gonna have a problem being used at 30,000 pounds. Again, we'll get to in a minute. I have a little bit larger soft shackle here that probably has a braking strength of 80,000 pounds, which again, we'll get to in a minute. Has anybody heard anybody say that this soft shackle is stronger than this hard shackle? Somebody's heard that, right? It's not true. I just told you that the working load limit on this is 10,000 pounds. However, with a 5-to-1 safety factor, the braking strength on this is 50,000 pounds. I will tell you that pound for pound, this is stronger than this. However, this is not currently stronger than this. This weighs less than half a pound. It's very light. This weighs about 2 pounds. If I wanted a 2-pound soft shackle, it's that big. And the truth is, this soft shackle's got a braking strength of close to 200,000 pounds. You could probably moor a cruise ship with that if you wanted to. You're never going to use it. I just brought it because people have said, you'll see things online, that this soft shackle is stronger than this hard shackle. It's a lie. It's not true. People talk about it in recovery classes all the time, that these are stronger than these. They are not. 50,000 pound brake strength, maybe 20, 30, 40, depending on what you have, maybe 50 or 60. But for a 2-pound shackle, and you can come pick them up later if you want, 2-pound shackle, 2-pound rope. A 2-pound rope, pound for pound, is a lot stronger than this, but not in the average everyday application that we find it in.
What does that 2-pound rope cost?
More than you want to spend. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So
He doesn't want to say just how silly he is, so he's going to leave it at that.
it was a great prop, and I couldn't pass it up. But the truth is, I've never used it. It's clean. It's never come out, and it's still stiff, and it's hard to put on and off. But I do have some bigger soft shackles, and I'm going to get to those in a second. Does anybody have a question about soft shackles, rating, application? I told.
Oh.
Where did you even find that freaking thing? Down somewhere?
Well, the truth is I bought that one on Amazon, but it was the last one and you can't get them on Amazon anymore. But the truth is, if you go to the internet and just Google this stuff, you can buy some of this stuff that's made in Australia where they get stuck all the time and spend a lot of money on stuff. My recommendation is don't go spend a lot of money on stuff. These soft shackles that I use, these 1/2-inch soft shackles, come in a pack of 2 for $20 on
The Amazons.
Amazon.
You Creative is the one you're probably looking for.
And you can go spend a lot of money, but they come in a 2-pack. Often they've got a little bag like this, and you got 2 of them in a bag. I just told you I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but if you want soft shackles, go to Amazon, spend $20, buy a pair of 1/2-inch soft shackles. They're rated higher than anything you'll ever do, even if you use a pulley. So you don't have to worry about exceeding the rating of your stuff. Excuse me just a second.
What's the working limit, working load for 3/8 versus working load for 1/2 inch?
Working load limit on a 3/8 without. So I said that Jack's steel cable has a braking strength. I'm going to ask you for a minute to forget about working load limit for a couple reasons. This hard shackle has a working load limit of 10,000 pounds. With a 5-to-1 safety factor, it's going to break at 50,000 pounds. Most companies aren't going to build in a 5-time safety factor. Some are going to build in a 3-time safety factor. But what you want to know is how strong is it and when it's going to break. Cut it in half and have at least a 2-to-1 safety factor, and we'll call that good. So your 3/8-inch ropes are going to have a braking strength of about 20,000 pounds. With a 10,000 pound winch, you've got a 2-to-1 safety factor. You're never going to break it. Your winch is going to stall before you do anything. The reason that I say look at the ratings closely, some of these things have a minimum braking strength, which means if I build 100 of these and we go break them all, the minimum that one broke at was 40,000 pounds, 39.6. The minimum braking strength on this thing is 39.6. However,
And that's
if
3/8.
Terry manufactures that thing, that 3/8-inch soft shackle, and he breaks 100 of them, and they break at all different weight ratings, but the minimum braking strength on that thing is 39,000 pounds, Terry is advertising that the minimum braking strength is 39,000 pounds. Well, if I'm less informed or less honest, and I built the exact same product that Terry did, and I went and broke 100 of them, and they all broke at different places, but I had one that broke at a maximum of 45,000 pounds. If I sell this product and I tell you it's got a maximum breaking strength of 45,000 pounds, you think you have something stronger because it's got a maximum breaking strength of 40,000 pounds. I'm kind of lying to you by not telling you that I had one that broke at 39,006, which is why Terry put a minimum breaking strength on his soft shackle at 39.6. You know that every soft shackle you buy from Terry is going to be good for at least 39,000 pounds. I've ad-libbed and fibbed a little bit because I want to creatively market this thing, or I just don't know. So what you really want is a minimum breaking strength, and I would recommend figure half of that is your working load limit. So if we were going to go out and use that hard shackle that I don't know where I put, and it's got a breaking strength of 50,000 pounds, if we cut that in half at a 2-to-1 safety factor, I would have no problem putting 25,000 pounds on this shackle because I still got a 2-to-1 safety factor. It's not going anywhere. The reality of it is we may get closer to the limit in certain applications, and this is where it's important for you to know your gear, what you're going to do with it, and what you're pulling out. There are applications you can download on your phone, and Snore is real big about, we pull up on Justin and he's stuck on an incline down a hill in the mud with a flat tire, and there's a calculation of how much force we're going to need to get him to come back up the hill. If I throw a lot at it with a huge safety factor, he's coming up the hill. I'm not going to want to take him halfway down a steep hill stuck in the mud with 4 flat tires and a dead engine and locked up transmission and try to drag him up the hill with a single line pull on one rope, because I know I could put more than 10 or 20,000 pounds worth of recovery effort on his vehicle. So I'm going to end up with more ropes, more pulleys, more vehicles in order to do that. Before I get into ropes, does anybody have any questions about the soft shackle? I'm sorry.
It looks just like a piece of rope with some knots.
It is.
It is.
You make your own shackle.
It is. The truth of the matter is it started as a piece of rope, and it was doubled back with a loop on one end, and it's got this cute little button knot, diamond knot, whatever they call this thing, that's tied back on itself that won't come off, and the ends are tucked back down in the rope. The truth is I have bought some extensions and made some of these myself. However,
You made this one?
I did not make any of the ones that are here, I don't think. So if I can buy these in a 2-pack for $20 on Amazon, it's kind of time consuming, and this knot's a pain in the butt to tie, and I end up retying it and trying to get it tight and all kinds of stuff, and I decided for $10 a piece it's not worth doing, because by the time I buy the rope and then cut it down, I'm in at about 10 bucks worth of rope, and I throw my labor in for free, so I quit making them. And I guess you could argue if I made it, I don't know exactly what the weight rating is, but if some manufacturer did and they've tested them and they're willing to put their name on it with a tag, it's going to give somebody some comfort that this is going to break at 60,000 pounds. Anybody else on soft shackles? Brian?
You've been using these quite a bit. Have you ever broken a soft shackle?
I've never broken a soft shackle with a straight pull in a normal application. And the reason that I say that
Under normal
is,
use.
the reason that I say that is with Snore, truth is I've never broken one, but I've seen them break. In the wrong application, and I'll get to that in just a second. Everybody here is driving a Jeep. Most of us have recovery points on the front. Most of us probably have a trailer hitch on the back. We're going to get to where we hook up to the vehicle in a second when we start talking about tree savers and straps. But we've got straps we can wrap around an axle. So if I go to recover you, Brian, and you have no recovery points on the front, or your bumper's bent and twisted and I don't want to rip your bumper off, I may take a short tree saver strap and reach up underneath, wrap it around your axle in order to attach to your vehicle, and I may pull it out. We get a lot of recoveries, believe it or not. People take their Honda Civics, their Accords, their minivans, their two-wheel drives, and they go down to the lake as the water is declining and the sun has crusted the top 1 inch and they think it looks like hard-packed desert, and they drive out and sink in the mud to the frame rails. They're stuck. A lot of these cars don't have recovery points. Some of them you've seen have little toe points, screws you can screw in by the bumper. They're not recovery points. They're anchors to tie it down on a tow truck when you're not going anywhere. But you can break those and rip them off. So you've got to get underneath the vehicle. Again, you got to start digging, and I don't like shovels, but you got to get down in the mud, you got to get under the vehicle. And if anybody's familiar with an independent front suspension car, you've got A-arms that the wheels are attached to. Those two A-arms go up and down with the independent suspension. That A-arm is often out of stamped sheet metal that is sharp. You got to get up underneath the vehicle and you've got to attach to something. If it's a straight axle vehicle like our Jeeps, I can wrap around the axle. If it's an automobile with independent front suspension, often we're trying to get around an A-arm that may have sharp points. So some of these tree savers have an additional piece of material on them, kind of like the protective sheathing on this soft shackle, where I can take this and wrap it around the shackle, wrap it around the A-arm in a point where I can protect my strap against something sharp. When doing so, I always try to attach with an inexpensive disposable piece of gear. I don't want to take the rope that's attached to my winch and wrap it around the A-arm on somebody's car, because when I cut it, replacing that winch line on my winch is expensive and it's a hassle. So the winch line should always be kept straight. It should always be pulled from point A to point B directly, not wrapped around anything. Your attachments are always going to be with some other piece of equipment. Hard shackle if it's right on the vehicle, soft shackle to that, winch line to it. If I'm underneath the vehicle, again, I may have a small strap attached to it. I can wrap it around twice. We've actually taken old fire hose and cut 2-foot pieces of fire hose where I can run this strap through a very tough reinforced fire hose that could be on a sharp edge, but we try to avoid sharp edges whenever we can. So the answer to your question is, I've never broken one in a proper application. I have seen them break and cut when they're hooked up against something sharp that they shouldn't have been in the first place.
Or they've been abrased and they should have been replaced and they didn't replace it yet.
Yeah, we've had, I'll get to you just a second. We've had situations where we've had to tow somebody miles back to the road because their car is dead. If I take a couple tree savers and I hook it to the vehicle and I use this to hook to another vehicle to tow, while we're towing, if this end is hooked to the vehicle, if slack gets in this line, this may end up dragging on the ground. So Terry's talking about, we've had these soft shackles drag on the ground for miles, wear thin, break the ropes where they should have been taken out of service. People have used them. And again, I would tell you, all my gear here is not currently torn or worn, but if it was, and I had to pull Keith out of the mud at Lake Mead, the worst thing that happens is that breaks and I got to get another one and hook back up to him. We had one a few weeks ago, guy's 180 foot down a hill on the edge of a cliff. I want all brand new gear. I want multiple winches, multiple lines, multiple attachment points, so that, again, with a 2-to-1 safety factor, I got one vehicle. I want 2 winches, 2 lines, 2 ropes. If anything fails, I don't want that vehicle going back over the edge. So in the right application, no, I've never broken one.
Our Jeep doesn't have what looks like normal attachment points. It has hooks on the front.
Uh-huh.
Can you put a soft shackle around the hook?
Sure. Is it a hook? What year's your Jeep?
Probably the factory hooks.
23.
So it's got something that just looks kind of like that.
Just a hook on the front, the factory
A
hook.
hook that looks like that? Oh, an open hook?
The factory open hook on the front, yeah.
Without seeing it, I can't tell you for sure. If it looks sharp, try to use something metal so that we don't cut it. If it's got nice rounded edges.
They're not sharp, they're dull.
Okay, if it's not sharp, then sure, you can just put a soft shackle right through it. I've got these trailer hitches here. So it's got a 4,000 pound working load limit with what kind of safety factor? If it's factory from Jeep, I guarantee it's at least 3 to 1 or more. So if it's rated at 4, it's not going to break for 12. I'm sure you could hook a winch to it and put 10,000 pounds worth of force. If it's what I'm thinking of, your Jeep probably has 2 of them. If we take 2 of these straps and we hook 1 to each of yours, and I come out and pull these 2 together, if I'm going to put 10,000 pounds worth of pulling force on a winch and I split it, I've only got 5,000 pounds on each of your hooks. So if you're not sure, and we're going to get to multiplication and reduction of force here in a minute, but if you're ever concerned about the amount of force, pull on both of them.
Like pull on my one hand and I go. Like, go ahead and do it, just pull. So if you got me just on one hook and he pulls, I'm going to go that way. But if you got me both and you pull me equally, I'm going equal with it. So it's distributing the weight load. That's what he's talking about.
If you happen to have a trailer hitch receiver, if all you have is a pin in the back of your trailer, you could take a strap or a soft shackle, shove it in there, and pull on that pin. I wouldn't recommend 40, 50,000 pounds of pull. Don't try to pull out a locomotive or a 747 on it. But in an emergency, you could pull on that pin. However, if you have some kind of receiver hitch that goes in there, most of these 1/2-inch ropes will go right through there. Mine happens to have nice rounded smooth edges, so I'm not going to damage my rope. If you've bought a trailer hitch receiver adapter, whether it has the hard shackle on it or not, it probably is rounded for a rope. But again, know your gear. If it's got a sharp edge, put a hard shackle in it. That's not going to break. Any other questions about soft shackles before I move on? Okay. Soft shackles, again, come in all kinds of sizes from mild to wild. You got to know your gear. I'm not going to tell you to buy anything. I really like the 1/2-inch soft shackle. It's rated at 40,000 pounds plus. You're probably not ever going to exceed 40,000 pounds. They fit through all the holes. Once we start getting into bigger shackles, they don't fit through all the holes. So by the time I get to 5/8 or a 3/4 inch shackle, soft shackle, I almost have to go through a bigger hard shackle because this big rope's not going to fit through a small hole. Okay, let's move on to ropes for a minute. I'm going to assume not everybody has a winch. So I'm going to go to winches and ropes last. But the next thing we're going to talk about is a kinetic rope. If anybody does not know what a kinetic rope is, it's like a big rubber band, and it's designed to stretch about 30%. So if Terry's stuck over there, and I hook this end to Terry, and I have this end hooked to my Jeep, and I want to pull Terry out, if I go and use just a standard strap to pull Terry out, when I get to the end of that strap, I'm stopped. I have to rely on the traction of my tires attached to the ground to try to pull Terry out. Well, if I'm spinning my tires, I'm going to dig myself in, and now we're both stuck. We've seen it countless times because the average guy goes to Home Depot or the auto parts store, and he's got himself
A toe strap.
a 2-inch toe strap, which is exactly that, a toe strap. If Terry breaks down and I just need to tow him back to the road, I can use a standard strap and I can just tow him back to the road. However, if he's stuck and I use that strap that does not stretch, one of 2 things is going to happen. I'm going to get to the end of this rope and we're both going to get whiplash or break something, or now my tires are going to lose traction. I'm going to start spinning and I'm going to get stuck too. The idea behind a kinetic rope is I would hook it up to the stuck vehicle. I would hook it up to the back of my vehicle. I'm going to back up about half a car length. And then I'm just going to accelerate like I'm leaving a stop sign. You're not trying to race the trucks onto the freeway. You're not trying to launch the space shuttle. You're just trying to get moving, and you want momentum past the end of this rope. So if I get to the end of this rope and the weight of my vehicle is still moving forward, this rope is going to stretch about 30%.
And I'm going to jump out the hole.
And then the recoil is going to kind of pull Terry up out of the hole.
It literally, it's almost like it just literally hops. It's the wildest thing to actually watch it work. It's so cool.
So I told you I'm not going to tell you what to buy, but if you decide to buy something, I like a pair of 1/2-inch soft shackles on Amazon for 20 bucks. 1/2-inch is kind of the sweet spot between strength, cost, and application. There are a lot of brands of kinetic rope. This green one came in this little coiled up pouch here that you can carry. Fits under your seat real nice. I bought this one for about 40 bucks at one point. I think they're closer to 50 now on Amazon if you want that one. I've got a little bigger rope here. We had a couple people out at the trail leader training class that thought bigger was better. Steve's going to volunteer. Bigger is better in certain applications.
Not with kinetic ropes.
Not all of them. If I get such a large kinetic rope that I cannot stretch it, it's like using a chain. If I had a kinetic rope this big and I hooked it to Terry with my 5,000-pound Jeep, even if I got to run and start to get on the freeway, I'm going to get to the end of that rope and we're both going to get whiplash. So bigger is not better when it comes to a rope. A 1/2-inch rope is good for side-by-sides. 7/8 inch, if anybody's going to go buy one, 7/8 inch is the perfect rope for your Jeep. What if I'm trying to pull out a motorhome? It doesn't matter. I can only exert the amount of force equal to the moving weight of my Jeep. So whether my Jeep is stuck and I want a semi-truck to pull my Jeep out, my Jeep's going to move at a certain rating. If I'm trying to pull out a stuck motorhome, I can only throw my Jeep forward with a certain amount of force. The answer to your question is 7/8. Don't go buy a 1-inch rope or an 1.5 or a 2-inch rope. It's overkill, and you'll get to the end of that rope and it won't stretch like it's supposed to. So too small a rope, you may break it. Too big a rope, it's not going to stretch.
How long is the green rope that you have here?
Good question.
20.
Most of these kinetic ropes come in 20 feet or 30 feet. Since we recover people in the mountains and on trails and in tight switchbacks, and sometimes we have to tow people out, I don't like a 30-foot rope because I have too much rope that's going to drag on the ground and wear and get wrapped around trees and stuff when we turn. So my preference is a 20-foot rope. If this 20-foot rope is going to do everything we want it to do, if I can get within 20 feet of you, it's going to pull you out. If I can't get but 40 feet from you, if I take this strap and I hook it to this green strap, I still have the kinetic benefit of this green rope with a 25 or 30-foot extension. So rather than starting with a 30-foot, which would be more expensive also, rather than having a 30-foot kinetic rope, I like 20, and you can always use a regular extension if you need to be farther away from the vehicle. As far as cost, there are kinetic ropes out there that are $200 or $300
or more.
There's brand names, Bubba Rope, and all kinds of stuff. Truth is, they're probably all made from the same material, coming from the same place. They just don't have some fancy name like Terry's Terrific Twine or something. Just to give you another example, this kinetic rope here came with a bag and
Came in a bag.
delivered from Amazon. Looked like this with a gold rope in a bag, with a carry bag that you can coil it up and put it under your seat. These ropes were on sale around Christmas for $20. I paid $19.95 for this, and I was in such shock I had to buy 5 of them to see if it was real. And the next day, 5 of these showed up at my house for $100. So if you look and you're creative and you're patient, you can find a great deal on a lot of this stuff, especially if you're not going to open a tow company and use this 40 times a day. If you want to come look at them, this gold rope is not much different than any of these other ropes. I've used them. I've never had a problem with them. So when they sold out, these are now like $45 on Amazon. But for $50, you can get
It's still a great
kinetic
price.
rope if you want one. Anybody have questions about a kinetic rope? Same thing, attachment points. We could go hard shackle directly to the vehicle. We could put a soft shackle in between those if we need to attach to something. If one of you guys is really stuck, instead of taking this kinetic rope and hooking it to one point on Terry's Jeep, where I'm gonna yank on one side of his frame, or I risk twisting him and I really wanna pull him out, I can take a short tree saver, and run this through my rope and hook to both of your tow hooks